Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So now I'm going to do the Ship My Cards review that I spoke about the other day, and we're going to try to streamline this. There are a couple of different areas that I want to cover, and I want to talk about a little different kind of my personal experience working with Ship My Cards since I gave it a try. Now what I'm going to show you so first to kind of give you a bit of a spoiler, my experience on the whole was positive. And at the end, I'm actually going to show you some numbers to show you what the price differential was. A couple of key factors that I want to make. I'm going to make reference to some of the processing times in that. And as I make reference to that, be aware that, like I said, on the whole, my experience was positive, but I'm also taking into account when I'm recording this video. So my experiences, just in case you do catch it down the line, are going to be based on October to November 2020. So number one, we got to bear in mind the pandemic. So I do take that into account. That's why I don't penalize somebody for longer than I need to if processing time isn't what I would want it to be ideally, because we're not in ideal conditions, so I understand that. Second factor I'm taking into account is the sports card market has been super hot. So anything related to sports cards has been suffering from processing delays. You don't believe me? You can look at the backlog at PSA, SGC, Beckett, COMC if you try to get a product ordered. People have already been complaining already for quite a while. Folks asking for things to get shipped in July that they still haven't received well into October, November. So anything related to sports cards, I expect there is going to be some processing delays. On the whole, I definitely experienced some, and I'm going to note that as I talk about this through the review. But compared to some of the delays that I've seen in terms of regular shipping on eBay and things like that, it's not as onerous as it could be. So I'm not going to penalize them too hard on that. I am factoring that in, but I'm still going to note it as part of the review, just so you understand that things aren't like super snappy as much as you'd want them to be. Ideally, you would prefer it to be faster, but we do have to take into account when we're talking about and what we're talking about. Now, the first item I do want to address right off the top is, why would you even want a service like this? What purpose does it serve? Is it just a mail forwarding service? Well, there is a mail forwarding element of it, but I'll explain that a little bit further when we get into it. And I want to make sure that I cover that. But at the same time, it isn't just mail forwarding. There are a few things that they do that I actually think are quite good, and I will review that with you as well. The main thing that you want to bear in mind is why you would even use it. Predominantly, this is mostly for international buyers. So they do take stuff from other places. You can do Instagram deals, Facebook deals, eBay, of course. But the idea is that they're providing a US address. Why you would need that as an international buyer? Well, you don't need it. If you're under perfect conditions, ideally, the best situation would be to have a friend or family member, maybe somebody who's stateside already, who could receive these packages for you, hold them, and then you can make arrangements to ship them or to pick them up or whatever. Probably wouldn't be crossing the border right now. It would probably be shipping, but you could make some kind of arrangement like that. Well, if you have that kind of an arrangement, well, then this doesn't make sense. This actually would be far from the ideal because you could save more money. You will save some money with this, and I'll kind of outline to you how that works. And by the way, I'm doing this under less than ideal conditions, and I'll explain why at the when I get to the breakdown. But you can definitely save some money. And even in my situation where I kind of rigged the deck against saving money, I still managed to. So that tells you something. The important thing that I'm going to show you as well is that part of the reason you would use it as well is that save money, one, but also some sellers simply will not sell internationally. So if a seller will not sell it to you, then you can't have the product. And if you do want the product and the price was fair, potentially you would be penalized for being outside of the United States. That's where a service like this also works as well. COMC does have a service like this in the sense that they can receive something for you, but as I already mentioned, they're having their own processing delays and shipping delays. So in reality, and also their shipping tends to be kind of high. So it may not be the ideal right now, or under normal circumstances in the past, that would have also been a viable option. So there are definitely other options out there. This is only one of. So as I go through it, you'll just have to bear in mind that everything I'm doing will be in the context of what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to get out of it. And I'll give you a real example of my experience and what I did. So having covered that, the next thing that we're going to talk about is how exactly it works. So what happens is you go into shipmycards.com. And you basically go and create an account for yourself. It's actually fairly straightforward to do, very simple. You basically create the account, you verify your email address, and then you get onto the page. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the share screen for you, and I'm going to show you a couple of different things. So this is after I had already done the shipping for my initial lot that I'll compare at the very end in terms of pricing and everything, but I want to give you a little bit of a taste of it. I'm not going to go through every single component of this screen because it's not a full-fledged tutorial, but I do want to give you a little bit of a taste for what it is and kind of how it works. So the general idea is that Ship My Cards, what it does is it gives you, as an international buyer, it gives you access to a United States address. It actually gives you access to two. One of them is based out of Arizona, and one of them is based out of Oregon. Why the other address exists, the Oregon address exists, is actually taxes. So if you want to save some money on taxes, that is a state that doesn't have sales tax. Therefore, you could definitely save some money. whether you want to use it or not, there are additional fees that are involved in that. So there are a lot of different things that you can do on Ship My Cards that will involve various fees. Now, the reality is that they do include in the FAQ, so I'll actually show that and click it here. They do explain what it is, and they also give you the address and how it works, but they'll also outline the fees. So the first order of address, the first line pretty much sums it up. Pretty much, we are your USA address. Exactly. Now, what happens here is if we go down, what are the fees? So they do outline them. So I'll quickly read them off for you. So a simple breakdown is that for the Arizona address, which is their primary address, it's $2 per card or $5 per lot. Now, in my experience, oftentimes, even if a lot has more than one card, they'll still sometimes mark it off for $2 as a per card rate instead of charging the full lot rate. So in the example of my original thing, I shipped 11 lots to myself and was charged for the 11 lots. And I actually, for all but one, I actually received a $2 rate. One of them got a $5, and that even included a lot that included 9 cards. So for the most part, they're actually pretty generous with that. They will occasionally hit you with the $5 charge, but it depends on the lot itself. $5 for a box of cards, $5 to $20 per large item. Obviously, it depends. The Oregon address, where I talked about the tax implications of using the Oregon address, it's $5 per card, $8 per lot, $10 for a box of cards, no large items without prior approval. All items from Oregon are forwarded to Arizona 3 times a week. We also charge a $3 per outgoing mail request for our supplies and time. Now, you can see the Oregon address does cost you a lot more money in terms of the individual items and in terms of having a shipping cost in order to transfer it over to the Arizona address where you would presumably do your final shipping from. Now, like I said, taxes is the only reason you would select the Oregon address. Now, depending on the item, if it's a bigger ticket item, it might still be worth it. So the key, I think, that I would want to outline for you is if you're thinking about a service like Ship My Cards, you got to do the math. You got to do a little bit of math to figure out if it's worth it for you, because sometimes you would rather just pay the rate. I'll be honest with you, the global shipping program that eBay does sometimes is so onerous that even with all these fees counted in, you still turn out ahead. In my example, like I said, I stacked the deck against coming out ahead, and I still came out ahead. And I'll break that down for you at the end. But that's kind of the general premise of it. And then here they list off the address. And the way it works is you send it to an address. So on eBay, you would create an address that contained Ship My Cards, care of your username. And your username can be whatever you want. And then it ships to the Arizona address. Oregon, it would be the exact same idea. It just depends. And they even mention here, the Oregon address is designed for purchase of $35 plus on eBay to eliminate the sales tax. Whether that's worth it or not to you, again, you got to pull out the old calculator and figure it out. Now, this is what the main page looks like. There's a couple different things that I'll show you on here. We'll keep it real basic for now. So this top part here is actually just showing my account balance right now. Similar to COMC, you can preload an account balance. So you basically could use PayPal. You could use a couple of different formats. They do include the fee in the PayPal if you choose that. It'll be calculated right at the time that you purchase the credit. And that credit can be used for shipping. It can be used even for buying things. One thing that you can do, and actually that is included here in this button, is you can actually transfer to another person on Ship My Cards. So in that way, they operate not only as a mailbox, but also as kind of a holding house for you in the sense that you can transfer. So you could actually make a deal with someone on Ship My Cards and transfer your card over to them where they could ship it for themselves whenever they want to. Well, that's kind of a neat service. Another thing they can do under normal circumstances, again, I would expect processing times to be delayed on all of this right now, is you could actually send your card off to PWCC. You could also send your card off for grading. And there are fees associated to all of those things, but it is convenient to be able to send it from one central location. So in theory, you could send it to them directly yourself and then have them forward it from there. An option for you. And obviously, it also allows you to sell the card here. So it allows you to put it in the marketplace, a couple of different things. And then this first one here is the actual tab that allows you to initiate, add an item to a cart potentially for shipping. And that'll be the last piece that I'll speak to in a second. Conceptually, well, the other thing they do is they include this, which is value, which is automatically set at $1, and you can adjust accordingly. The value only really matters when it comes time to ship, because it also helps you. Now, it might be usable as far as the selling. You might be able to use the value to be able to set a price in case you put it in the marketplace. Again, I didn't play around with that setting. So that's just a guess on my part, an educated guess, but it's still a guess. And the second part is the fee. So at the time that this card came in, I received a $2 fee. This card was $2 fee. This card was $2 fee. So these are one card lots. So that was well within exactly what they outlined already previously. So all good so far. Okay. Now, let me tell you, I gave you kind of a general overview of a couple of the services they provide. I didn't use most of them. I'm focusing mainly on receiving and shipping. That's mainly what I use this for. And what I want to share with you now is I want to share with you a little value add that's included as part of the fee. It's no extra fee for this, but one thing I like, and I'll explain why in a second. So you actually receive this. So at the time they receive it and process it, again, there are delays right now for processing. Be aware of that. And that's the reason why I gave that little disclaimer off the top. I'm still going to mention it, but I'm also pointing out that pandemic, general slowdown with volumes in terms of sports card stuff. Just be aware of all that. If you're in more normal time, I would expect it to be a little bit quicker, but that's where the reality we sit in right now. So this card is actually a nice Medano patch card, a treasured swap patches card out of 5. A great card that I'll be happy to have in the collection. Now, what they do here that's good, and the reason I like it, is when they receive it, they'll open the package and actually take a picture of the card for you or the item. It doesn't have to be a card, it could be an item. But the reason why that's important is that when you're buying from eBay, for example, you want to know that the seller actually sent you the item. So this is key here, because sometimes you'll have an item that you'll purchase from an American seller, and even if they use tracking, the tracking will let you know that it was received in Arizona. Be aware, because of the processing lag that I was telling you about, you may receive it on Arizona. You may receive it. It may show as delivered to Arizona, say on a Tuesday. Don't expect it to be there on a Wednesday or Thursday. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Your mileage may vary. Just be aware. For some cases, for me, it took a couple of days for something to appear. Sometimes a couple of more days, but for the most part, within a week, I generally had it. So usually it was within a day or two. Again, your mileage may vary. Now, the next thing is they actually list off your username. They give it an individual lot number, and they put the date that it was received and whether it's active. So that just gives you some general information to tell you. So these were over a couple of different days. And I had the same thing with my initial group of 11 lots that I then subsequently had shipped to myself. The way you would do it is, like I said, you would hit that little tab, it would be added, and then what you do is you initiate what's called a shipping quote. And when you do this, what happens next is that as your shipping quote, you don't automatically receive the total. You have your address that you put in. So on your account, you put in your address and your information where you're going to ship it to. And what happens is at the time you do that, you can select how much you want in terms of insurance, how much you want to declare for customs purposes, what type of shipping you want to do. For me, like I said, I stacked the deck. I decided to pick FedEx shipping, which is not the cheapest. Just be aware of that. They do say they get preferential rates in terms of that. They can get decent rates for it. And I thought it was pretty fair, the rate I got for it, but be aware of that. And be aware that if you are an international person and you get a FedEx package, there's a good chance you're going to be paying customs on that. Now, eBay tries to pre-charge you customs. Their customs calculation is a little bit more generous than the real customs calculation. And also be aware that your customs is at least partially dictated by your declared value. And also be aware that as far as customs is concerned, the eBay Global Shipping Program also charges a handling fee on top of customs, a very generous customs calculation. So you got to factor all of this in. And I do give you a little bit of a breakdown at the end as far as a spreadsheet I'll show you that gives you kind of a general scenario. One other thing I'll mention here as well is that when you do it, you don't get the quote right away. For me, it took a couple of days, but between the time I requested shipment and the time they actually shipped it out and the time that I actually could have received it when FedEx was ready to deliver it to me, it was about a week. So all in all, not too bad. One important thing is, like I said, I could have received it. The problem was I hadn't, FedEx contacted me in order to pay the customs. And because I wasn't able to get on the phone and basically pay it over the phone right away, it delayed my shipment by a couple of days. So it could have been delivered on Friday. Instead, I got it on Monday. Once I paid it and they went out on Monday to deliver, I got it before lunch on Monday. So not too bad. That was a FedEx and customs thing. It wasn't actually ship my cards. They weren't responsible for that. But the reason why I mentioned the delay in the shipping quote, and it's important, is that if you don't have sufficient balance in it, you could actually go into a negative balance. It will let you go into a negative balance. I would recommend trying to kind of calculate in advance what you think it could be in terms of a charge, because it will get deducted from your account balance on the screen when you go in and at the time they do it. One other thing is that they will also send you an email that will include the tracking number as well as being available under the shipment history. So you'll be able to open it up and pull up the tracking number, in my case for FedEx. And I was able to see exactly, I was able to follow it along with FedEx's tracking. So that was nice. And like I said, I picked FedEx because I wanted to get it quickly and I wanted to have the tracking. I had some nice cards in that lot, so I decided to be extra careful. And I put some extra insurance on it, so obviously that increased my fees and charges. So you don't have to do that. I did put myself behind the 8 ball in terms of saving money, but I could have saved more money if I had picked a cheaper option and maybe been a little bit more cavalier with some of the extra insurance and things that I added on, but that was my choice. Okay, so that we don't make the video too long, let's get to the numbers. I said there were 11 lots. So what I did is I actually listed all 11 lots here. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I saved, hundreds of dollars. No, I didn't save hundreds of dollars. But like I said, I put myself in a position where I made it a lot more even than it would have been otherwise. But I did break it down here for you. So what I did is the 11 lots, what I did is I actually bought these lots on eBay. And like I said, I set my address to the Arizona address. So I incurred all the fees, and I actually will list the fees. All of it's over on the right, and I'll go through it in a second. So I listed all 11 lots, so I've got them all here, and I put in the total amount. Again, since I picked Arizona, there was sales tax. So I paid the Arizona sales tax for the lot in all of the cases. Now, what I do is I calculated all the different ones and I added it up. So you can see here I paid $6.45. That is the actual shipping I paid with tax. Now, had I shipped it to Canada, I wouldn't have gotten the sales tax, but their shipping to Canada was $15 US. So you can see already there's a fairly large discrepancy between one and the other. The same thing happens on the next one. This is a patch card. It was $6.69, including tax. Well, the Canadian shipping cost would have been $17.37. And it goes on like this. Probably the most egregious one that I can find here is this one. This 3-color patch cost me $6.46, but it would have cost me $23.32 to ship through eBay's global shipping program. Very expensive. Now, there's a couple of these that I do take liberties with. I do a best guess because this lot here, $1.32 and $2.37, and this one was actually part of the same $2.37. So these two lots were in the same shopping cart. So I actually got charged $2.37 tax total for both cards. So that's why I didn't put a number in for line number 9 here. But I took a guess here on these two in terms of shipping because in both cases, they would not have shipped to Canada at all. So I actually took kind of an average number. I've seen higher for cards like this in terms of the eBay Global Shipping Program had they provided it. Since it was US shipping, they actually provided free shipping. I only had to pay the sales tax, in which case it added up, like I said. For this card, it was $1.32. And for these two cards combined, the sales tax was actually $2.37 combined for both cards. So all in all, for these 3 cards together, I actually paid a total of $3.69 in shipping. And most likely, again, I took a best guess, it would probably have cost me comfortably $38, almost $40 shipping for the 3, had they all provided a shipping to the US. The next one here was $3.78 for a 4-card lot from one seller. It would have been $13.25 a flat rate because they did do combined shipping, but over $30 was free shipping in the US. So really, I just paid sales tax on that one. And the next one here was Burbank Sports Cards. I paid $3.50. It would have been $7 to Canada. They did a $3 flat rate to the US. Next one here was a Ed Belfour Medano jersey card, $4.61 compared to $12. Again, wouldn't ship to Canada, so I used 12 as my placeholder number. I've seen higher for cheaper cards, just to be aware. That's why I'm saying I'm not making up a unfair number here. I've seen at least $15, $16 for some cards that were less than $10. So $12 is not an unfair estimate, considering some of the cards I've seen. And this one, it was actually the one time that I would say it was actually more expensive because they did a $3.50 flat rate. So I actually had to pay 9 cents taxes, which actually made this example more expensive. So I didn't just include examples where it worked the other way because this card was so cheap. It actually cost me more money. So, fair enough. Anyway, all told, the actual shipping, the total shipping, including tax, was $46.29. Now let's, before I give you this total here, even though it's up here, you can see it for yourself. Let me include the ship my cards charges. So the actual processing charges, 11 lots, remember. For 10 of the lots, it was $2. So I paid $20 for that. For one lot, they charged me $5. So $25 in processing charges. When Ship My Cards took it in initially, took the scan, and then took it out of the account. Next was FedEx. The total quote I received was for $29.56 US. Again, I'm using US dollars for all this stuff, just to be fair. So that was the FedEx charge. Again, I could have picked a cheaper option. That was my choice. Because of that, I paid that, plus I paid $22.15 in terms of customs. So the total amount for shipping for FedEx in that situation was $51.71. But again, when I compare it to kind of what it could have been, like I said, one of those cards would have been $23.32 by itself. So it kind of offsets. You just have to bear that in mind. And then the total shipping itself, the actual shipping that I paid was $46.29. So the end result was my total actual was right about $123. I'm actually surprised it worked out that evenly, but that's basically what it added up to. I took these numbers straight from eBay and from the sites. And the customs I converted back over into US dollars from Canadian dollars because I was charging Canadian dollars for the customs, just so you're aware. And the total shipping in my hypothetical, had I done these individually, had all of these sellers shipped to Canada based on my guesstimates here, because they could have charged me more, certainly. My total shipping was $145. So in this case, I saved about $22.52. It could have been obviously bigger savings had I selected a different shipping option. But you can see even in this example where I kind of did stack the deck against myself, I still saved some money by going in this manner. And that's kind of the point of the whole ship my cards thing. So let me stop sharing my screen here. Okay, so that's really kind of the review. The idea, as far as the service, it worked fairly well for me. I won't say it was the fastest because there were delays. Obviously, it takes a couple of days for things to get processed, for the picture to get taken between the time it is received, especially where I had tracking. I could see that it was received, and then it would take a couple of days for it to appear. But since I wanted to bundle up the items for shipping, that was okay. So, but you have to bear that in mind. And I have to include it as part of a review. As far as usability, the site is actually pretty straightforward and easy to navigate. The FAQ is very clear on how to do certain things. That was easy enough to figure out and navigate. Setting up my address and then getting a shipping quote wasn't too bad. There was a bit of a delay in getting the shipping quote, but once I did start getting those, one other thing I failed to mention was that as you receive items and as they acknowledge them, on the whole, they will actually send you an email, at least they did for me, basically confirming that they had received this item and that it was added to my account. So that was a nice little add-on feature as well. The pictures were very useful because they allowed me to make sure that I received the cards that I was supposed to get so that I could give the eBay sellers feedback without having to wait a long time and wait for it to come in and make sure. Being able to see the pictures and make sure the cards were there, the appropriate cards for the lot, allowed me to be able to then say, yep, I received the items, positive feedback, whatever. So that was good. I do have a couple more cards, as I showed you in the screenshot there, that are going to be at Ship My Cards. There's a couple more I'm waiting to come in. So I'll be doing a second shipment. And I will update later if I experience a little bit of a different one. I may select a different shipping option just because it is kind of expensive. But because some of these cards were a little bit rarer and a little bit more expensive in terms of cards that I definitely wanted to have in the collection, I didn't want to take any chances. So I decided to be a little more conservative and select FedEx with some insurance and with a more realistic customs charge based on what I felt the value was of the cards. If you want to be a little more aggressive and be lighter on the customs value, then you could probably save some money on customs as well as probably on shipping. Again, your mileage may vary. I'm not going to recommend that to you. Do whatever you wish as far as that's concerned. But on the whole, I will say my experience was fairly positive. It is a viable option. I will definitely look to see if there's some other options that might be interesting, but on the whole, it was fine. One other point I'll make as well. Because it is kind of a smaller operation it feels like it's kind of like a family company. I don't know how many other employees they have. I can't speak to that. I will say there were some times where the website would go down for a couple of hours or a day. And then generally speaking, their Facebook page is pretty good about keeping people up to date. But there are a lot of folks on there that get very antsy whenever the page goes down. Again, since I was kind of putting the carts together and kind of waiting to send them off as a bulk lot to combine the shipping, so to speak, I was a little more patient. And again, in the course of the review, but I would be remiss if I left that out. There is very much a small company vibe to it because there are times where there'll be delays and stuff. If that is a concern for you, you may want to bear that in mind. On the whole, I felt like they were reasonably responsive to certain inquiries. But again, your mileage may vary. My experience, as I said, was fairly positive. So that's kind of where I would leave that. It could be a viable alternative for you if you're an international person. Again, the ideal is if you can find a friend or family that can do it for you. Obviously, that would save you some charge, but you would be imposing a little bit. It'll depend on what kind of thing you can arrange for yourself. Okay, so I think that's it. I don't want to make the video too long. Hopefully, that was somewhat helpful. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to throw them in there, and I'll be happy to respond to them as best I can. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.